The hidden trap of emotional abuse. Let's start with the truth you've been avoiding. She's not just emotional. She's testing you, and you're failing every single time. You think staying quiet will calm things down. You think absorbing her outbursts makes you strong. You think keeping the peace is your duty as a man. But what you're really doing is giving her permission to disrespect you. You've become her emotional punching bag, and now she doesn't even flinch when she throws her next jab. And here's what stings the most. You trained her to do it. Every time she lashed out and you said nothing, she learned you'd take it. Every time she weaponized her emotions and you backed down, she learned your feelings don't matter. Every time you tried to fix it instead of confront it, she lost a little more respect for you. You think you're being mature. She sees weakness. You think you're being patient. She sees passivity. You think you're being emotionally strong. She sees someone she can manipulate. Let that truth cut deep, because here's the worst part. This cycle doesn't start with her. It starts with you. You tolerate it. You enable it. You stay silent. Somewhere along the way, you were convinced that real men take it all on the chin. You were lied to. Real men do not absorb emotional abuse in the name of love. Real men do not compromise their self-respect to prove their loyalty. Real men do not allow someone else's chaos to define their worth. And until you break this cycle, you will remain trapped, not in a relationship, but in a dynamic where your soul is slowly bleeding out. It starts small, a snide comment, a guilt trip, a public dig dressed as a joke. You say nothing, then it escalates. Verbal attacks during arguments, mood swings you're forced to manage, emotional blackmail disguised as just being honest. And still, you do nothing. Because you're afraid of conflict, of losing her, of being too harsh. But what you should fear more than all of that is becoming the kind of man she can't respect and doesn't fear losing. Let's make one thing clear, because it's killing your masculinity quietly every single day. You are not responsible for processing her emotions. You're not her counselor. You're not her mother. You're not her emotional sponge. You are her man. And being a man doesn't mean soaking up every bit of chaos she throws your way. But that's exactly what you've become. You try to fix her every mood. You walk on eggshells to keep things calm. You tell yourself, if I can just stay patient, she'll come around. But guess what? She never does. Because what you're doing, what you think is love, it's weakness, it's enabling, it's disrespect toward yourself. Every time you absorb her verbal jabs, her emotional tantrums, her passive-aggressive digs, you are training her to see you as a man without boundaries. And the second she sees you as a man without boundaries, she stops feeling safe. She stops feeling attracted. And worst of all, she stops respecting you. You know why? Because women don't want a man who absorbs everything. They want a man who can handle anything without losing himself in the process. Big difference. You've been told to listen more, to understand her feelings, to be the safe space. But being a safe space does not mean being a target. It means being a mountain, stable, centered, unmovable, while the storm rages around you. Let me tell you something no one else will. When she lashes out emotionally, she doesn't want you to cry with her. She wants to feel that you can take it without folding. She wants to see that your emotional core isn't affected by her noise, not because she wants to break you, but because if she can move you, rattle you, unground you, then who the hell is going to protect her from the world? She tests you for your strength, and you keep failing it because you're too afraid to stand firm. Let me ask you, when was the last time you stopped a conversation and said, "This is not how I allow myself to be spoken to"? When was the last time you walked away from a woman's outburst without apologizing for making her upset? When was the last time you made it clear you will not be disrespected? Period? Exactly. You haven't, because you're afraid she'll leave, afraid she'll say you're too much, afraid she'll say you don't care. But here's what's worse. She's staying and slowly losing all respect for you. A woman doesn't respect a man who lets her beat on his spirit just because he's afraid of losing her. She respects the man who's strong enough to walk and who respects himself more than her moods. You're not cold for standing your ground. You're not selfish for having limits. You're not cruel for saying no more. That's what makes you dependable. That's what makes you solid. That's what makes her feel something she doesn't feel with weak men. Safe. Because you're no longer reacting. You're leading. So next time she throws a tantrum, tries to provoke a reaction, or dumps her unresolved trauma on you. Don't absorb it. Don't fix it. Don't entertain it. Let her know. I'm here for you, but I'm not a landing pad for disrespect. If you need to scream at someone, go find a mirror. I'm not available for this anymore. And when you do that, calmly, without anger, without drama, something incredible happens. She steps back. She recalibrates. She sees you again. Not as her emotional sponge, but as a man she can actually trust. You've just raised the bar, and trust me, she'll either rise to meet it or fall away, because she was never meant to walk beside you in the first place. You don't exist to absorb her pain. You exist to walk with purpose, to lead with strength, to set the standard. Stop being her therapist. Start being the standard. Let's talk boundaries, not the soft, trendy Instagram kind, but real, masculine, unbreakable boundaries. The kind that draw a line in the sand and say, you don't cross this and still get to stay in my life. Every time you let her snap at you, guilt trip you, insult you in front of others, or disrespect you in private, you tell her who you are, a man with no edge. And guess what? A man with no edge has no respect. You think she'll love you more if you just keep forgiving, tolerating, explaining yourself like a schoolboy. But deep down, she's losing attraction because she can't feel where you stand. She doesn't want a man who lets her walk all over him. She wants a man who can stand up and say no. No to chaos. No to disrespect. No to emotional blackmail disguised as communication. Here's the truth. A woman constantly tests to feel your strength. She doesn't do it maliciously, but instinctively. She's asking one thing with every mood swing, every passive-aggressive dig, every manipulative silence. Can I trust you to stay solid when I try to shake you? And when you fold, when you explain, justify, apologize for things you didn't even do wrong, she knows you're not solid. She knows she has to lead herself, and that's when the attraction dies. Masculine leadership starts with calm, firm boundaries. Not threats, not shouting, but clear lines. Real strength doesn't bark, it acts. It doesn't justify, it enforces. So here's your rule. One clear boundary spoken calmly is more powerful than 100 emotional conversations. Say it once, say it directly, then enforce it. If you raise your voice, I leave the room. If you insult me, the conversation ends. If you disrespect me in front of others, I'll remove myself. No second warning. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You just need to walk away when that line is crossed. Not in anger, but in power. She'll resist it at first. She'll test you harder. She'll throw guilt, sarcasm, tears. That's the moment most men fold. But not you. You hold the line. You keep your word. You let your strength speak louder than her storm. And suddenly, something shifts. She starts watching her tone. She starts respecting your space. She starts softening. Not because you forced her, but because you showed her there are standards now. That's what real leadership looks like. Not domination, but direction. Not control, but clarity. And most of all, not softness disguised as love, but strength that commands respect. So stop explaining. Stop begging. Stop making her emotions your compass. Set the tone. Hold the frame. Enforce the boundary. And watch her step back into her feminine. Because now she's with a man. Not a sponge, not a fixer, not an emotional safety net, but a man with backbone. And that's the kind of man she can't help but follow. You want the truth? You are not being disrespected by accident. You're being disrespected because you trained her to do it. Every time you tolerated the yelling, the guilt-tripping, the eye-rolling, the sarcasm, the subtle digs in front of others, the cold silence as punishment, you reinforced one idea in her mind. He'll take it. And every time you took it without a boundary, without a consequence, without a line in the sand, you killed the part of you that demands respect. You didn't fall into this dynamic. You allowed it. You thought being patient was strength. You thought being understanding was maturity. You thought sacrificing your own peace was noble. But all she saw was weakness. Not because she's evil, but because women test for strength. And when they find none, they lose all desire to follow. That's the moment you became the emotional punching bag. Not when she exploded, but when you stayed. Not when she pushed your buttons, but when you let her. So now it ends. Because this version of you, the quiet sufferer, the people pleaser, the approval addict, that version dies here. From this moment forward, you decide how you will be treated. You set the standard. You don't raise your voice. You don't explain yourself like a guilty child. You lead. You state the boundary once, and you enforce it without apology. If she wants to follow, she'll follow. If she wants to leave, let her walk. Either way, you win, because either way, you stand in your strength. Understand this. Strong men don't fear losing women who don't respect them. They fear losing themselves. And if you've already lost pieces of yourself just to keep a woman from walking away, then you already know that pain. It's slow, it's quiet, but it rots you from the inside. So flip the script. Let her feel that she's no longer dealing with a boy desperate for validation. She's dealing with a man who leads with calm, purpose, and unshakable standards. She'll feel that deeply, and she'll either rise up into her feminine in response, or she'll disappear because she was never meant to be with a man of this strength. And you'll be better off either way, because a man who stands firm becomes the kind of man who no longer needs to be someone's emotional punching bag to feel valuable. He becomes the mountain, the standard, the storm's calm, and the one thing she cannot control but cannot ignore. Stand firm, brother. The old you is dead. Long live the real one.